All right. Well, this is exciting. What I'm kind of also going off script a little here, and not exactly. So my goal was to find things I've been to in the last several months that are immersive or representative. But what I did kind of instead is find things that have tenets of immersives, because I knew everyone was going to be talking about specific things in theater and puzzle rooms and stuff. So the tenets of immersives, and then and you'll see why at the end, why I kind of broke this down. So I went to the paper fashion show and could not believe, so this is a fashion show where everything is made out of paper. They have to be like 90% paper. And something about Constraint is really interesting, especially as a designer for an experience, figuring out how to kind of house it. What kind of limit are you going to put on it, or what kind of direction is it going to go? And so I thought Paper Fashion Show was a really good example of that, because I could not believe, I mean, this was better, even with this constraint, this fashion was better than I think any other fashion show I've been to, just a fashion. So it's like, wait, you can make something cooler out of paper than you could out of just fabric, you know? So I think that the constraint actually makes it better. So, yeah. And then the next one is theme. So, you go out to dinner all the time or whatever. And so having a themed dinner, which is something that I like doing myself, is getting together with people and coming up with themed events or themed food events. I love food, and I also love Casabrina. So figure that one out. But recently went to the Inventing Room, which is a molecular dessert shop. So taking a lot of the things with molecular gastronomy and making crazy desserts. But then once a month they have this called Gobble Funk Dinner. And the one for last month was Stranger Things. So they actually came up with Stranger Things themed dinner. And you got this lollipop that had like the kids from Stranger Things on like a big waffle moon. And then there's... I can't really remember the theme of this like pork and waffle thing with beets and some kind of au jus on there. And there was also the dessert was called the Upside Down and so it was actually a dessert that's under a cookie. And so everything's like below it. And the cookie was like this really amazing charcoal, like activated charcoal cookie that was amazing just by itself. And so the idea of taking a theme and so making like food more interesting by giving it a theme. And then something about going further. The attention to detail, the attention to taking something and just railing it to the end. And so just last night, this actually happened like less than 24 hours ago, was that horror drag, very recent. And Evie Oddly, does anyone know who Evie Oddly is? It's our local kind of horror drag who just won RuPaul's Drag Race. And so definitely helping bring horror drag into, drag shows have been going on for a really long time. So how do you, and it can get more extravagant and bigger hair and more makeup and whatever, but horror drag, I feel like it takes it into my realm of interest of like there's blood and there's body parts falling off and stuff. It's really cool. So I think taking something much further past what anyone has seen before is another good tenet of immersive. And then Vertigo. There's a place called City Museum in St. Louis that I went to several years ago, and it's amazing. You climb all over things. Well, now Denver at the Children's Museum, it's called, what is it called, Adventure Jungle? Adventure Forest? Yeah. And you can see it it's cool because you can see it from the highway, and you're like, what is that crazy thing? I want to go up there. And you're like, oh, you can go up there. What? And so you go up there, and you got to find a kid, because it's like you got to borrow someone's kid, because they do have some adult nights, but those like sold out immediately. But you go and you just climb around and you crawl on things, and there's a part where you're crawling across a bridge of just plexiglass looking straight down. And it's right over the highway too, like the center image is like you looking down on the highway. So it's like you're taken very far out of a comfort zone with vertigo and creating, being surrounded by a weird space. And then one of the other tenets that I really like is something abandoned. And this is not in Colorado, but this is an abandoned airplane at a really weird hotel, and you can go walk around on this plane. It was a medical transport plane, and so you're watching. It feels really creepy, and you're like, oh, I'm in this weird space, and it's just another thing where it's like makes you feel something. And so abandoned spaces are very interesting to me. I've been to abandoned amusement parks in other countries, and I could just spend a lot of time there. Here's another thing. You can actually see where they stack up the cots for bodies, I guess. And this medical, people going to the hospital. And yeah, jump seats and stuff. And we were pretty freaked out on that. And so what I'm leading up to here is historical. So a friend of mine is in town. He went back then when I was like a teenager. He was known as Tom Headbanger. He just goes by Tom Banger now. But it was kind of part of my upbringing in like the punk rock scene in Denver, and he did one of the really early punk fanzines, and he brought shows. And we are very lucky now to have so many spaces. I mean, there's bands playing probably like within 50 yards of here somewhere, like right now. Like there's much more availability. But Tom was trying to set up shows for bands that had never been here. He put on the first show for several bands that came through, doing them at fraternal lodges, abandoned warehouses, and just weird spaces, because that was all that you could really do. It was like, this is going to not make money. It's probably going to lose money. It's there's going to be. It was what I was saying is kind of DIY by necessity. Like now DIY is a buzzword. It's like, oh, let's go to that DIY space. Like this guy's like registered trademark DIY. Like this really was. It was like you had to do it in this way because you couldn't do it otherwise. And so really it was immersive by circumstance. But if you think about all the tenets that I talked about, the constraints, the themes, going further, all of these shows, it was like, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the biggest things about immersive is that when something's marketed as immersive, you're almost created too much of a expectation. It's like, we're going to go, like, immerse me. Come on, like, immerse me now. It's like Mariah and I have gone to several immersive things, and it's like our expectations are so high even going in. So back then, it wasn't a phrase, It wasn't like, we're going to go to this thing. It was like you go to the thing and you have no idea what's going to happen. You could get arrested. There could be a fight. There could be, it's like, it was really anything could happen. The show might not even go on, or it might be like down the street because the one place got closed down, or you go through a back door or whatever. So I think that all those constraints existed back then by necessity, and I thought that was really interesting. One of the examples is this Constraint in Neubauten show, which is a kind of a noise band, industrial band from Germany that came through. And Tom put on this show at a junkyard. And there was fire and metal, people hitting metal. And the ticket was actually a bone, an animal bone that was painted with the logo. And it was, you had to go to Wax Trax and buy this bone. And it was a really limited thing. And so it was the rave party before the rave party, where you had to go like to a map point or whatever. It was like, and so these punk shows, who knows what's going to happen? And the idea of putting on these shows, I find really intriguing, because I've done a lot of events and stuff, and it's like it's so much work. And like after every event, I remember David did a scavenger hunt, and he's like, I'm never doing an event again. Like by the time it's over, you're just like, oh, I'm so exhausted. But Tom is actually in town doing some lectures on some of the old stuff he did in the 80s and 90s. So I want to bring him up to answer this question for me. So Tom Banger. So the question is, this is like, why would you go way out of your way? Like you're like early 20s, probably no money, right? Like why would you go way out of your way? You've gotten beat up at these things, maybe arrested, I don't know. Like, so give me the why.
Well, so the first thing is, to me, I'm an intellectual person by nature, and so I want things to take me out of my head. And so I like things that are visceral and hard-hitting. So not quite like that, but it ended up like that a few times. But so the way that I can experience things is to truly be in them with the minimum of mediation, should you say. And like traditional rock shows and a lot of art is really voyeuristic in the sense that it's mediated and curated by the people that put it on. And so that's part of it. So I liked punk over classic rock, and I liked industrial over punk. And now I don't know what I like YouTube trap music or something like that. I'm not sure, but like angry kids from weird countries. So I think the thing is we had no money, there were no spaces, there was no audience, there were sort of no bands, and there was no press. And so, but I wanted to see this stuff. Like, if I didn't put it on, I wouldn't get to see Sonic Youth. Which sounds kind of crazy now, because like you can't not see Sonic Youth now. They have books out and movies, and Daydream Nation is 30 years old this week or something, and it's this whole different thing now. And so, I don't know. I did it because you have to. You have to, like, if you want to make a difference in the world, and you want to change people, I believe that you have to change them physically in a way that changing people intellectually doesn't stick. And so if you want people to change their beliefs, if you want people to be interested and engaged, then you have to be interesting and engaging. And you have to take chances. Like tightrope shows are no fun if there's a net. So you've got to pull out that safety to create an experience for people that's lasting and meaningful.
Yeah, when someone earlier was talking about VR and AR, and I think like once people kind of like get everything they can get out of the headset, I wrote it down while I was sitting over there. It was like which is ultra reality. It's like I want to see like those one-to-one, the personal things that you fall down a hole and you're in another world or whatever. Like really, the in your face and the physical things. So maybe that's what's next. And so one of the things Tom's doing while he's here is he donated his collection of flyers and zines and stuff from the 80s to the Denver Public Library Western History. Is that right? Western History Department. So it really it's kind of immortalized now, but he's going to have a talk at the Denver Public Library going through that stuff and telling stories from some of these shows. That's Monday night at 6 at the Central Branch. But yes, thanks everyone for your attention.